So this is your factoring polynomials video. So you need to keep in mind, you'd be factoring polynomials when the degree is 2, so it's quadratic. Here's your example. The number of terms is 3, so it has to be a trinomial. And then the coefficient of the squared term is greater than 1. So it has to be 1 or more than 1. Can't have a fraction. So these are our steps we're going to follow right here. So step 1, we're going to check for the GCF. That's what we started doing yesterday. Remember, we made the chart and we saw what the GCF was. You're going to slide and multiply. What I mean by that is you're going to slide whatever number's up in front and you're going to multiply it times whatever's in the end. You're going to divide and reduce the fractions. And then you're going to do bottoms up. So what does all that mean? Well, let's talk about it. Let's look at our first example. 7x squared plus 29x plus 4. So your first step is you want to check for the GCF. So you take it apart. Let's see. When we do our factors, if you can see that, let's scoot it up a little bit. So menu, 2, 3, 7 what are my factors? It's 7, so 7, and then I have x squared, so that means I have 2 x's. Menu 2, 3 for 29. Nope, it's just 29, and then I have 1x, and then find out the factors of 4. I get that it's 2 squared, so that means I have 2 times 2. So this one does not have a GCF, so we've done that. Step 2, we want to slide and multiply. So I'm going to slide this 7 to the end and multiply it by 4. So when I rewrite it, I have x squared plus 29x plus 7 times 4 is 28. So this is my new trinomial, and this is what I'm going to be factoring. Okay, so what does the factoring mean? Well, if you start looking at those x puzzles we did, you want to multiply this number right here. This one goes up in the top, 28, and they have to add together to give you 29. Remember, they have to multiply in top and add for the bottom. So what times what gives you 28, but then you add them together to give you 29? Well, 28 times 1 gives you 28, and then 28 plus 1 gives you 29. So my numbers from my puzzle are going to be 1 and 28. So yesterday we practiced doing those. Now we'll see what we actually do with them. So these become my factors. I'm going to divide, my factors. So it would be, they're both positive. So if you make your parentheses for your factors, it's going to be x plus 1 and x plus 28. So there right there is my factors. It's whatever multiplies together to give you that trinomial. Step 3, you're going to divide and reduce your fractions. What does that mean? You're going to divide by that number in front. So I'm going to divide both sides by 7. Now 1 over 7, we can try simplifying in our calculator. 1 divided by 7 is just 1/7. What about 28 divided by 7? That reduces to 4. So this fraction goes to 4. Then you got to remember bottoms up. We don't want to leave them as fractions. So this 7 has to slide up and go up in front. So it's going to be 7x plus 1. And this one is x plus 4. I know it seems like a lot, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. Okay? So let's look at this example down here in the bottom. N squared minus 3n minus 28. So first step, you want to check for your GCF. N squared means we have 2n. Negative 3n means we have negative 1 times 3 with 1n. Then if we factor the 28, menu 2, 3, negative 28, our factors are negative 1, 2 squared times 7, so it'll be negative 1 times 2 times 2 times 7. There's no GCF here, so we're going to move straight to step 2. Slide and multiply. Well, my last example had a 7 up in front. If you look, the number in front here, there's nothing there. So you would make it an understood 1. If you multiply it, it doesn't change anything. So your equation is still n squared minus 3n. Negative 28 times 1 is still just a negative 28. You want to draw your puzzle because that's what comes next. The number at the end now goes in top. The number in the middle goes in bottom because these are multiplying together and we're adding at the bottom. So what times what gives us negative 28 and add together give us 7. So if they're multiplying together, now you're actually going to have to remember your positives and negatives. A negative and a positive multiply together to give you a negative 28. So we would maybe have 7 and 4. Well, if I make it a negative 7 and a positive 4, if you add them together, you might have to do some guessing and checking. That gives me a negative 3. So if I write out my factors, which is just 2 sets of parentheses and an n, this time we used n instead of x. You can use whichever letter they give you. It's a negative 7, so that means it's minus 7. It's a positive 4, so that means it's plus 4. So we slide and multiply. We divide and reduce our fraction. So this time my number in front was a 1, so I'm going to divide both by 1. Negative and reduce our fraction. So negative 7 divided by 1 is a negative 7. 4 divided by 1 is a 4. So we end up with n minus 7. N plus 4. There's no fractions, so there's no bottoms up. So we're done for that one. Follow your steps. We're going to do, okay, so our last example, 12x squared plus 3x minus 9. Step 1, check for our GCF. So, draw your chart, use your calculator, menu 2, 3, type in the 12, 2 squared times 3, so you have 2 2s, so 2 times 3, x squared, 2 x's, 3 is just 3, and you have an x, and then you do menu 2, 3 of negative 9, you get that it's negative 1. You have 3 squared, so that means you have 2 3s. So is there anything that the columns have in common? Well, yeah. Each of them has a 3. So if we rewrite it, our GCF goes on the outside. Then rewrite your 2 times 2 is 4x squared plus x. Negative 1 times 3 is a minus 3. This is our new trinomial we're looking at. We're going to leave the 3 on the outside and just forget about it for a while. So we're going to slide. So when we do that, we get that it is 3 times x squared plus x minus 12. So now when we do our x puzzle, negative 12 goes on top because that's what we're trying to multiply. We have a positive 1 on bottom. That's what we're trying to add together. So one's going to have to be a negative and one's a positive because they multiply together to give you a negative. The bigger number will have to be a negative because they add to, or sorry, the bigger number will have to be a positive. So what times what gives you 12, but added together gives you 1? Well, you might have a positive 4 and a negative 3. Leaving your GCF still on the outside, set up your 2 factors. We have x's. We have a minus 3 and a plus 4. So now you divide by the number in front. This time our number in front is still 4, so divide by 4. 3 over 4 doesn't reduce, but this guy reduces to 1. Bottoms up. Can't leave it as a fraction. So you have 3 times 4x minus 3, open parentheses, x plus 1. You need to follow your steps so you don't get lost.